I've had people who I done outreach to who I told them, who told me, stop messaging me, get me off your list, right? And then I accidentally put them back in the sequence. Like let's say through LinkedIn.
Jeremy Miner has really good stuff on. He calls it NEPQ equation. So he's very big on tonality and micro expressions, right? So you could be like saying something with your hand on your heart, like very intensely, and someone like takes it as you care. But if you're like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all those little things that add up because our reptilian brain processes tone before it does words. And so
You're
it's
right.
pretty cool.
I heard that. I heard what you say is only reflects, or at least the person receives only like 20% of it, but your tone, your expression, they take in more than like 60% of everything else, your body language. So I can see how that plays a huge part, especially in this digital world, because you don't see what's going on with your hands as much, or use your body, your feet. I actually learned a new one. When you're talking to someone and you're having a conversation with them, and if their feet are pointed toward you, they're in the conversation. They're ingrained in it. But if one foot is at you and one is toward an exit, like away from you, they want to leave. Their body language is saying, I want to step out of this conversation. You know what I mean? So sometimes their body says a lot, right? And we don't get that.
Super interesting. And it may or may not even be you or the conversation, something else swirling in their mind, right? And they're just distressed, you know?
That's so
But
true.
It's just an interesting point, right? It's like people will think they'll think it's just the prospect or something like that. But it's like, what prospect wakes up and says, that call I have with the sales rep later, if he really pushes me on that third question, I think I'm going to just,
I think some people
I might snap
do.
on him. I might just hang up on him. Yeah, they might. They might. But it's usually like an instant. Yeah. It's an instant reaction because we trigger something.
That's so true. My wife does that, right? Like if I'm talking about something and I know I got her sold, she's sold, and I say something that doesn't align with her, and her reaction is, like she just hit her eyes squint, like, and I found out that meant like you're trying to block visually what you're seeing, what you're feeling, and you're trying to block it out, right? So you're like, in a way, it's not aligned to you. You don't like it. I had one too. I feel I'm self-aware enough to notice what reactions I'm doing, as I'm like my face reaction. And I remember one day I was talking to myself, and I was saying, I was like doing, I forgot what I was doing exactly, but I thought of someone who reached out, and I told myself, I'm not gonna respond to them. Like, I don't care. And my lip did this thing where it just flicked, right? And I was like, what is that, right? And I looked it up, I Googled it, and it's a sign of contempt, right? Like, you don't like what you did. And I'm like, because I'm not for brushing someone off, right? But I would have never known that came up, you know what I mean? Which is so an interesting point of view. Like, I love how like your body says a lot more than what you're actually thinking. It'll tell you. I saw your little one in the background. It's so cute. Oh, you're on mute.
I literally clicked on mute, right? This is real life. Child walking in, but at least we got the coffee.
Exactly.
Shout out to Daniel. Are you on like the craft coffee? We haven't had this discussion this long in our friendship.
Actually,
real quick side note.
We have, and you forgot, so that hurts a lot more. I'm kidding. No, I started. Oh, look at the fucking language. That's a good one. That's good. Okay, now the guard is down.
Right, that's the whole goal.
For me, I like iced coffee now. We go through phases, my wife and I. So it's like, we put over ice, put some of that creamer. I realized
especially when it gets hot, man. You're out there in the heat.
I realized I don't like coffee as much as I do creamer.
Oh yeah. You're a little bit of coffee with your creamer, guy?
Yeah.
Caffeinate my cream.
I'm more, coffee with my creamer.
Caffeine
cream. Pretty much.
Yeah. This is from Portrait Coffee in ATL. It's like becoming one of my favorite roasters. but it's a little light roast Rwanda blend. I really like them. They're pretty awesome. You hear like the neuroscientists are like, or like people who are like anti-caffeine, anti-coffee and make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
And then you listen to a guy that's, one meal a day and drinks 10 to 15 cups of coffee and you're like, oh, I feel better about myself.
Yeah, see.
That's been me this week. I'm like a 2, maybe 3 a day.
I'll see. Oh, 3 a day. Okay.
Maybe just on those days,
Is that why you're outperforming in these sales systems? Right. I see.
I
you're
try,
building,
1% better. 1%
you're building
better.
a lot, and I think that I'm excited to just talk about that because the coffee is reflecting what you're building, and it's being used, and I love it. Right. So I want to see how coffee's changed your life. Right? Have a neighbor of mine who drinks beer every day. Like we're talking about like a 6-pack a day minimum, right? And he after that journey for so long, he ended up losing 30 pounds. He's like, what's going on? And then he realized it's because he switched his beer from Bud Light to what was it? Is that one? I forgot what beer. Yeah, Ultra. And he lost a bunch of weight. And I'm like, it's funny because like one switch in what you're doing can make all the difference. In your case, coffee makes the difference for your build mode.
So true. I just love the taste. Love good, high quality coffee. But yeah, I like where this conversation's been because we're talking about sales messaging. We've been talking a lot about that, right? Just even, platforming. What's the model you call it? Promotions and motions. Yes, right. So how do you create that? How do you create traffic into a platform, into a funnel, and then nurture the leads? But I really feel like what we've been working on, right, and what we talk a lot about turning lead flow into cash flow, but not everybody, but for the most part, it's usually people struggle with a lead flow problem starting out to actually have leads to improve the follow-up on, right? And so, we've been building behind the scenes a lot on the outbound prospecting side of things. And to recap, there's really only 6 ways to acquire a customer, right? Alex Hormozy would say this. There's ads, there's content, there's your own email marketing list, there's prospecting, there's affiliates, and there's referrals. And so a lot of people will hinge their business on ads, and you can see, okay, 1 of 6, that's a wobble. That's like a pogo stick instead of a solid chair. So we talk a lot about multi-channel, multi-methods, and prospecting if you're a B2B, especially if you're a B2B, right? So if you're a business targeting other businesses, there's a lot you can do with a little. So do you want to talk about any of that, or where do you want to land the plane here today?
My son just came in too. So I don't know if you saw that. That's it. All right. Guest speaker. You know what? I really am open to wherever you want to take this because I feel like the lowest hanging fruit is your outreach, right? I've noticed that if I can pump up my numbers in terms of how many people are on the top of the funnel, more likely to have conversations. I think I even spoke about that at one point recently. Dana Derricks explains that, hey, he's paying thousands of dollars for one picture with a pyramid, right? And in this mastermind training, they explain that at the top of the pyramid, 3% of the people you do outreach to are ready to buy right now, right? And then the next 7% on the second stage of that pyramid are people who are willing to buy in the next 14 days, right? So he says, hey, the game is in your favor. If you can reach out to a lot of people, about 10% of them will be ready to buy in the next 14 days or so, or the need will be expressed, right? And I'm like, prospecting is the lowest hanging fruit. It's something that we're doing actively. There's things that we can bring to the table. So maybe we can start there and then start showing how we can move that into the content side, like you mentioned, putting them on your list, right? So I think that's a good segue to a lot of different conversations. Something you can start right now. You can go on the phone
Totally.
right now and start calling.
Yeah. And real quickly, what do you say from your perspective? What holds a lot of people back from going that route? Either pursuing outbound or for sticking or to stick with it.
Oh man, I think first of all the hardest thing is like where do you get the leads from?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard one. Like who do I reach out to? Who do I put on top of the funnel? Like how do I narrow it down? How do I scrape this information where it's valid? Right. So like it's a lot of technical things I feel like stops people, right? Maybe your email list, oh, it's not warmed up. You start to hear these jargon like, oh, you should warm up your email for the next 4 days. How do I do that? Right? How do I connect the SMTP server to to my
Yes.
email. Like it's
The
just
tech can get in the way real quick.
that's a really big one. And then after that, when that happens, you're like, well, I've never done outreach before, so how do I get someone to convert from my first message to close? Like that's a so it's a lot of little false beliefs that you can hold yourself back. But at the end of the day, it comes back to that story that we talked about. If you're out there knocking on doors, they'll open. One or two may open, maybe even one. I've had doors slam on me like crazy. So, but once you start to realize what's slamming these doors, you know how to pivot.
Yep, I think fear of rejection is a big one, right? We all have that kind of hesitancy and, don't want to come across as salesy. And some people are going to get that trigger where they can't have that emotion conveyed on a LinkedIn message or an email, right? You can't convey fully tonality, right? You can only do so much with, you can add in creative things, we know, with video and audio messages, but it does become a little bit more of a numbers game. But how do you add personal touches and that Daniel Flowers humor flair, on there? So, I think you mix in some conviction what you have to offer and how you can get people results. And then if what I've been learning is sales is a skill. It's not just a numbers game. It's a skill, especially when it comes time to conversation, messaging. How do you navigate? How do you help people put their guard down? And we're both still learning that, but it's exciting because that persuasion with a good heart and good motive applies to all areas of life. And so if you can if you can win at it in business, how much more motivating is that to help influence people in life for the better and help them move towards something that they need?
That's so true, man. I love that because we talked about this before. It's like a game, right? You can put odds in your favor. There's ways to improve your odds of closing someone, right? Like when doing outreach, it's like that story I always hear or I've heard before where if you were to walk in the bar right now, and you talk to the bartender and you're having a good time with them, and as you're chuckling, having a good, laughing along, a woman comes in, right? Let's say you're a man sitting in the seat. A woman comes in and you're like, whoa, she's really pretty. You ask the bartender, who is that lady? Right? And the first thing the bartender says is, stay away. That woman is crazy. Do not talk to her at all. Right? Like she will bite your head off. And then she sits next to you. How would that conversation play out as soon as she sits next to you? All right. But on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
imagine he says, "Oh man, that's I don't know, Maria, right? She's so outgoing. Like by far, she's a hero. You would love hanging out with her. She's actually started a nonprofit and saved and found homes for thousands of kids. Definitely spend time talking to her, and then she sits next to you. How does that conversation play out, right? So knowing how to pre-frame, right? It's the little story in the pre-frame. That's enough to win a lot of prospecting. You can get a referral to do a shout out for you. Fastest way to get closed deals. We've seen that thousands of times. Well, I don't say hundreds, but still, a lot of
That's why
times.
referrals are so powerful. It's
Seriously.
actually something I've played with a little bit, and I think is powerful if you have the right person, and it's things align where someone was willing to hop in and help you out with taking more of that referral. Hey, you should talk to this person route, even from an outbound, like they don't have that relationship yet, but you're saying like, hey, I'm kind of in this world too. I guess it's kind of Dream 100-ish.
Mm-hmm.
You should talk to that person. And people were like, oh yeah, thanks for pointing that person to me. And then next thing you know, it's like this quicker bridge of trust that was kind of created just from someone wanting to connect to them versus
And
like talking to
so
me
true.
directly.
So, and you
Yeah,
can build
it's
that pretty
interesting.
quickly.
Yeah,
You can let that be a priority. If you said, okay, I looked at all my players who are at the same level as me. Let's say I have 3,000 followers, they have 3,000, and they have an offer that's complementary to mine. Let your first level of outreach be to them to warm them up, right? You're like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'm doing something similar. Just letting you know, keep doing what you're doing because it's inspired me to keep going because I know that it's, believable. That's enough to drop reciprocity, right? It drops liking, right? And then you can add to that. What is it? Authority, like, hey, yeah, I've worked with someone else in this space who's doing this. You can pay for that if you wanted to. Yeah, I worked with Dana Derricks and he said this is how he started. So just letting you know, keep going, and you make them feel better. And then before you know it, 3 messages into it, you can say, hey, I'm working on this launch. I would love to be able to work with you if you're open to it. Like sharing leads, like kind of building a strategic alliance. And I'll tell you right now, reach out to 100 of them, you're gonna find at least 40% of them that say, yeah, I'm down to share leads. And that's enough to close way more deals. You start hearing each other, shouting each other out.
Sharing the burden of marketing. And again, I think it's result plus intention, right? I think the reason so many people are triggered by sales and things someone wants to sell them is the distrust that we now live in a noisy world. And a lot of people they just want your money. A lot of people are like that. So how do you convey that? And that's something you have to dig deep and make sure you check on a regular basis, right? So I think that's just always something to keep front of mind, and we're trying to keep front of mind,
Seriously, seriously. And I feel like if we're gonna, getting into that, I would say when someone's starting into, and I'm sure you have a diagram that you can highlight here, but in terms of like doing outbound and like prospecting, a lot of the times the one key takeaway I would use to make a big difference in your prospecting game is starting with like learning how to master headlines, right? Knowing how to, and there's a lot of like formulas that you can use to get this down. Like I know I've had strong converting emails by just focusing on the subject line to get more open rates. After a while,
It's usually the boring ones too.
quick request in lowercase.
Yeah,
I'll
I
tell
like
you
the
right now,
boring ones.
those work really good.
Yeah.
The one that hurts me though was the RE, like regarding with the colon. That gets
Yeah, or
the
like
open.
respond to make it look like it's already a thread that you.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
hurts. That feels like malicious or like it feels like a lie, like manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
avoid that. I've had that. So
It's like the fine lines of like sent from iPhone. You put that in an automation. It's like
that's a
the
good
video's
one.
not.
That
It
I
is a good one.
Yeah, because it seems
Yeah,
like
anything to make it look real, but you know what I mean. It's we're always trying to make sure you're on the ethical lines.
exactly. And there's a lot of, and I'm realizing that okay, your headlines is the beginning of everything, right?
Yeah.
And that opens up, it opens up your prospecting efforts a lot more because if they're not going to read your message, you can reach out to 1,000 people and no one opens it. There's no point in reaching out to 1,000 people. So like, and when it comes to prospecting, knowing your audience, first of all, their problems, their questions, their roadblocks and results, and you can reference that in your outbound messaging, having a good headline, like that's going to pull them regarding their problems. Like, for example, that when I talked about, um, like when I told you, I don't think I shared this story, but when I was getting insurance, um, right when I was getting insurance, it was time, open enrollment. You got to get it, right? I'm already busy with so many clients, doing so much work, but I know deadline's coming up. So my eyes and ears are perked for this problem, right? Problem is I need to get signed up and my deadline's coming up. The roadblock in front of me is I have no time at where I go. And then as I'm throughout my day, during my work day, an email popped up and it said to sign up already, right? And I'm thinking that's one of the insurance I was supposed to work with. I was supposed to work with. I'm letting you know what's gonna happen. And I end up booking the time. I end up paying and getting signed up, and it was like $800. And I'm like, dang, that's a lot. That's a lot of money for insurance. Come to realize that wasn't the provider I was supposed to work with. You told me it's like what $300 for the person I was supposed to work with. And I'm like, dang it, like they caught me in that their prospecting efforts caught me in a time where I was prime and it pulled me in. It took me to the end. And I'm a little bummed about it, but
Yeah.
I haven't canceled. Right? It's like that your headlines make a big difference. It hits them at the right moment. I've had people who I done outreach to who I told them who told me, stop messaging me, get me off your list, right? And then I accidentally put them back in the sequence, like let's say through LinkedIn, and they're the nicest. Like 2 months later, we're on a first name basis. Like we're the nicest people. We're talking about our kids. We're talking about how their daughter just got married. They just went to Cancun. Like whatever the case. I'm like, whoa! Like if you saw
Yeah,
the
it's
last
crazy.
message you sent me,
Yeah, I literally just the other day it was a message. Literally nothing about it sniffed pitchy. Like nothing was a pitch slap at all. And they're like, "Oh, didn't know this was going to be a sales pitch." I, was, I had to laugh at that one. It's like it was just proof. Like it's not a. You never know what you're going to get. Like just with someone's timing. But that was just a great point. It was kind of made me think of that. Yeah.
timing is everything. Timing. That's why some successful people like For example, companies like I don't know if you heard the story of Barbie, like how they got started. Um, but um, the so the owner there noticed that, hey, my daughter Barbara is playing with dolls, but they're baby dolls, but she's dressing them up as adults. Do you hear popping too? Is that popping or is that just me?
Oh, I just got madness of family behind me.
Oh no, no, my mic sucks. I gotta buy the mic. But don't say it. Don't say it.
I
Oh,
won't say it. I'll hold my tongue. Get him
okay,
in the
now I
comments,
have to get
everybody.
a
Tell him to
new
get a new mic.
yeah, get a new mic. No, for real. I do gotta get a new mic. But in this scenario, the person who invented Barbie noticed that her daughter Barbara was playing with Barbie dolls, or at least baby dolls, but pretending they're adults and putting clothes on them, like with paper. And she says, "Oh, well, I'm gonna create an adult version of this, because it's not in the market." And everyone hated the idea, like everyone. Her husband was even in the toy company that he started or co-founded, and he said that's a dumb idea. Until they traveled abroad and saw that someone else was doing it, and said, "I gotta do this. This is right." And it just took off because the kids wanted it. The timing was right. They were tired of little kid baby dolls, and it just hit. And a lot of the times, your timing and your outreach, they may be, it makes a big difference. What maybe work in 1 year can very well work better the next year, or the opposite.
Yeah, and putting yourself in the shoes of, like, if I got this message, which is also a tough one because I don't like falling into the fallacy. Well, I don't like that, so it wouldn't work. I see that a lot of times, or like, people hesitate to do something because they don't want to offend a single person when it's bound to happen. But yeah, do that. They had to put themselves in like the kids back in their kid mind to understand, like, clearly the kids want this. That's a good one. I think alongside this, I would love to share a slide to kind of show the common bottlenecks here, and maybe we can share a little bit of strategy tactics to start these conversations.
I think that'd be great. Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Let's just dump in, get practical. I'm share my
Okay,
screen here. All right, can you see my screen, Daniel?
It's loading up.
Looking good.
And there we go. Now it works.
All right, so big picture. Well, what we've been talking about is a lot of 6 ways to acquire a customer. Another way to simplify marketing. You hear inbound, outbound. I take for granted there's still plenty of people that don't know what that means specifically. But inbound is people find you more organically, meaning through your content, referrals, those types of channels. And then outbound would be more prospecting, right? You're reaching out. It can be more pattern interrupting. That's why I think ads can be considered outbound. Some people call it inbound. But if you pop in front of someone's Facebook feed when they're not even looking for a solution, that seems like outbound to me. Would you agree, Daniel?
I agree because they weren't looking for that. Like the need wasn't there. Your face just how happens to come in front of you. So that is kind
Exactly.
of like a cold call.
Yeah. So you got inbound leads ideally coming in, right? And you're engaging those leads. And then on the other pillar, you got you can either go the account route, so you're targeting companies, or you're targeting specific type of prospects. You can do prospect first approach, and then you reach out to those and engage those accounts / prospects. And both of those are culminating, right? So you don't want a pogo stick; you have a sturdy chair. They come into sales qualified leads, is all that means, into a sales opportunity, right? So they become qualified, hop into an opportunity, turn them into a client that you impact. So lead flow into cash flow, right? You can kind of see the sideways funnel here. But something we look at really is the problem with most B2B businesses comes down to these two levers of acquisition and fulfillment. And, like we say, it'd be great if your problem is fulfillment because you have too much sales coming in, right? Daniel, you had a story last week of that. But oftentimes we got to get more acquisition so that we can fill the fulfillment pipeline and grow the company. And so client acquisition comes down to struggling to not get enough qualified appointments. A lot of times, if you're a service-based business or if appointments are part of your sales process, right? And so this is usually a multi-dimensional problem that we've been talking a lot about these things individually, right? Poor offer, poor messaging copy, the headline, right? You're not speaking to the problem. Niche hopping, you're not solidified who your ideal customer profile is, and you're bouncing around trying to figure it out. lack of systems, right? The tech gets in the way. You don't have the machine, low volume, so you're not reaching enough people because there is a number side of this, and then inconsistent inputs. So right, you turn it off, turn it on, you don't really stick with it. Content's really hard to be consistent with, right? So really being consistency. I've always heard distribution and discipline equals freedom in business. Discipline in life, distribution, like, channels, and business. I've always liked that. So if you can keep working on both of those at the same time, you're going to get great client acquisition. And if they're coming into a great machine, a great engine, then your follow-up can be on point and you have visibility. People don't fall through the cracks, right? We talk about building sales bridges, value bridges, so that people don't fall through the cracks. So we won't get into fulfillment too much here. I just really wanted to hit on these problems. And Daniel, if you want to speak into any of those, feel free to hop in.
No, I love that's a really big one because what's that saying? It says a confused mind, or for any customer, confused mind always enters no, right? So if you were to reach out to someone, let's say, for example, poor messaging, like, hey, I do all of this information, or like, hey, if they don't know exactly what you're about, that's like the first, that's all of it in pretty much one answer. Because a poor offer, that means that you don't have, that you're confusing them. They're like, what do you even sell, right? Or like a poor messaging, it doesn't even reflect the offer. Like, I'm still confused on what do you do, right? And niche hopping, it causes more confusion. Like, weren't you in fitness the other day, right? A lack of systems. Like, hey, I was supposed to follow up with you, and I messed up in terms of following up, and now it's like, what do you do? Like, there's a lot of ways to push the customer away without knowing it, and that's the problem. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, because at the end of the day, if you imagine how that person felt in that moment, right? In that moment, it makes a bigger difference, right? So if you knew that you had a system that allowed them to feel like, I'm the only person stepping into this building altogether, right? It makes them feel like, oh wow, like, okay, I am heard. This is for me, and now they start to justify mentally why I purchase, right? A lot of the times when a person, from what I heard from Steve Larson, when someone buys, they buy with the side of the brain that's emotion, right? Oh, I need this because this reason, or there was a sale. And then after they purchase, they justify their decision,
Yes.
right? Based on what and now
We
they
are
have
good
to
at
remember,
justifying.
yeah. And you have to remember, why did I do it? Oh, it's because it was a sale, or oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's because it was fixing the problem I had. But if they're confused as to why I purchased, and they're like, you know what, this isn't justified, let me go and return. And now you're returning the offer, and now it's like refunds are high. So when you don't have a clear, crystal clear offer and a poor messaging, and you're the king of this niche, they're like, oh, I'm working with this guy because he is the category king of this industry. He knows what he's talking about. And that's enough to keep someone in, right? I want to be around this guy or this gal, right? So
Yes.
it's really good.
And why do people not buy or regret? It's because the perceived risk, right? So we go back to $100 million offer, $100 million offers. Everybody needs to read that book. You want to increase the perceived likelihood of success, or the perceived value and the likelihood of success, and lower the amount of effort and time it takes. But when all of those start to go the opposite ways, where it becomes more perceived that way even after purchase, that's where regret or lack of, which means, either your offer or the way you've communicated the offer may be off. And what is a sales funnel? It's automating the delivery of an effective offer, product market fit, and a message, problem market fit.
Exactly. And it's funny, like, a lot of the times, I was gonna say something you said right now, but I totally missed the mark. Yeah, but no, I agree with that 100%. Like, when you get it down, it makes it easier for you, knowing that, hey, I put all the pieces together that created certainty. And when you do outreach, certainty sells, right? That's what Tony Robbins says. The person who will walk away with the sign, winning, or who sold, is the one who's most certain, right? And if I know, right, that I can make a difference in your life with my solution, then I won't let you leave, right? It's Russell Brunson also says it's a moral obligation for me to give you this because I know it'll make you feel better. Right? It's just and when you have that, outbound is so much easier. Right? You start like, I know I have a tool Here's all the testimonials. Here's the stories. Here's what I've seen. I've seen the light on the other side of the tunnel, and I want to bring you there. And when you're talking to them in that way, I've had people where I've done a video recording speaking in that way with intention and they're like, dude, whatever you're about, I'm with it. They've told me that because I'm like, I'm in it. I'm like, I know
Conviction.
why. Conviction, it
Yep.
hits them. It's like that tone, right? We just spoke about that. And so,
Yeah. It's like when you're attached and you need the sale. It's like that whole thing too.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of it can be you can be just really trying to scrape it together, but just got to fight to live in there, that spot, that sweet spot. I like that a lot.
Hmm. Exactly, exactly. And we can definitely get into the details of how we can pull that person in from the inbound and outbound, right? The client acquisition. Like one example of mine, which is my favorite, is when you have a piece of content, right, that talks about, like we said, the problems, questions, roadblocks, or results of your customer. In this case, let's say there's a headline that says, "The one mistake you're making when applying for a account executive position," right? That's speaking to them. They know, okay, what's that problem? I'm making mistakes, right? When they see that and they opt into that piece of content you share with them, one good way to take that to a call is once they opt in for it, you give it to them, you call them and confirm, hey, did you receive that product? Because I know the internet's a pretty big place, right? I want to make sure you didn't make a wrong turn. Okay, perfect. Well, mind you, we have like well over 20 hours of content that we can share with you that's all related to avoiding mistakes as an account executive. You mind if I share a couple of those your way along with this one? Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I want to make sure I don't give you the wrong piece of information. So you mind if I ask a couple of questions to make sure I'm giving you something that's tailored to you? It'll take like 2 minutes. Oh, sure. And now you just ask permission to triage them or qualify them, ask them about what they've done, how much you're making, what's the pain. And now you've just qualified them and you can transition
Yeah.
them to a solution. And that's when it comes down to having, your offer. My offer is I help account executives land high level roles. My messaging is speaking to your problem. It just all fits. And if you have that down, they resonate with that. They feel that. And that can fit in inbound and outbound. Inbound, I put it on a post and I get a guest post about that blog, and now people are reaching out to me. Or I put on an ad and say, hey, get this white paper. So that's like the secret formula right there. It's a writer downer, the 2-step approach.
I was just thinking about that fits what I was thinking today. It's like, when you infuse sales with value, empathy, conviction. Like I think you can wrap empathy and conviction together as that like service, like that care and service. Dude, that's powerful. Like, and, give away the boat and sell the motor. Like, when the time comes, like when people need help saving time and, being more efficient.
You gotta share that
It's good
story.
stuff.
With
Yeah.
Do you know that story? The
Which one?
About the selling the boat and buying the motor.
Yeah. Did we do that on
I don't
we
know.
did do that on one of the earlier
Did
episodes.
we?
It never
We
grows old
explained it.
though.
Oh, okay, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that
Yeah.
it fits so well with
We'll have to
how this
revisit.
system works.
Yes.
It's like the story that wraps the whole idea, right? It's the in that whole, yeah. It fits perfectly. So if you don't know it, then this is a
Yeah.
call out to the other episode, right?
Yeah.
We
Come on, go
talked
check
about
it out. Check the archive, check the vault. Be about the people. Be about the people. That's one of the biggest
Exactly.
lessons there. All right,
Exactly.
let's move on just real quick here. So,
Go.
what does it look like to leverage a multi-channel automation system? Like, so automation, I just threw that word in, right? But we want to leverage automation, but we want to have the personal touch. We want to have this isn't. Yeah, it's great when you have a sales funnel that's like inbound leads are coming in and it's fully automated and can sell itself. But if we're talking outbound here, it's going to be some automation, but also manually picking up the phone, manually responding to have that real human conversation. So what we like to do is combine four channels here, right? So LinkedIn and helping scale that and save time by using automation there. Really, there's automation involved in all of these, but LinkedIn into both the SMS and phone call and email, right? And so that's where LinkedIn will come into a sales engine where the follow-up will continue on those 3 channels. So we'll stop there if you have anything, Daniel, but don't want to get too nitty-gritty on those channels. That's kind of the main ingredients we want to talk about, though.
No, I think that just adds to the impressions, right? Like, hey,
Yep.
I reach out to you. I'm bringing different medium to let you know that, hey, I'm following you. So, and not in a stalker sense, but like I want to support you. right? So I like that.
Exactly. And so we're not going to jump into this, but this is what a machine looks like from a process flow standpoint, right? So like we're talking why, what, how, the strategy is the what, the strategy is like the what an outbound machine looks like. And then the tactics is the how, and it's like getting the actual procedures, processes down. And when you can get this really flowing and just put the right people and the right message into it, I think that's what it's a machine that works for you, to where you can then work in your sweet spot and work the sales and move from there. So that's what our whole vision was with it. So what can this look like from a LinkedIn first approach, right? Because LinkedIn, you don't have to wait you don't have to worry about inbox delivery. You don't have to worry about the waiting for email warm-ups, that whole, it's less technical from that standpoint. So what if you had a way to load ideal customers, prospects into a LinkedIn campaign where it has a great conversational but gets direct quick enough in the messaging with your offer and starts conversations every single day for you. And then all of those feed into an engine, a visible pipeline, where they will also start getting the email, the phone, the text. And at the point of response, you can pick up and you can see exactly how many possible opportunities you have in your pipeline. Give them a dollar value at each stage if you want to, and you can start to see some real potential dollars in your business.
Exactly.
And that's what I just said, right? That we put them into a drip campaign, right? If they don't respond on LinkedIn, continue the touch points, continue the value, and but space it out over a reasonable time. And ideally, you get a response, even if it's a no or a. Sometimes you can turn those, the middle ground ones into a conversation as well.
Exactly.
So let's look at some possible results, or stop me and if you have some thoughts there, Daniel.
No, I just thought, I want to mention, like, with that the system itself, it's catching those opportunities that fall through the cracks, right? And what that really means is that you're able to now focus on the other areas of your business, like creating the content, building the partnerships, knowing that this is going to be able to work for you. So you got that level of freedom instead of being behind the computer, copying and pasting and sending along and let me go.
Yes, and you're not spending thousands of dollars in ads.
And that's what
ads aren't bad when they're done at the right time, and you have to,
definitely.
But you can be spending a lot of money to get data to get them to work. So here's what it could look like, right? Say you just use your one LinkedIn account today, and this is the same strategy me and Daniel are applying for ourselves, but one LinkedIn account. Say you're getting 400 connection requests per link or per week. Typically it's only 100 if you just do manual plus manual time to do it on LinkedIn. And then let's say you get a low, anything above 20% we consider positive. So 20% connection rate would be 80 connections. Let's just keep following that down. Say only 5% of those connected into what we call discovery calls, the initial call, just to qualify them, build a connection for those. And then let's say, the other 70% that don't respond on LinkedIn, only 2%, even just 2% of those respond and book off the email, phone, text. That's an extra 4 discovery calls per week. So that's 8 per week, 32 per month, if my math is right, for a 4-week month. And then let's say you close 25% of those into an actual sales call. That's 2 sales calls per week or 8 per month. As you can see here, 640 connections. You're building your LinkedIn audience. So if you're posting there, you literally could have 640 more people on your feed that your content's going in front of. And then I like these odds. If you had 32 calls a month, right? Don't you like those odds, Daniel, to get sales every single month? And these are low numbers, right?
Without a doubt. And that's 1 month. So as you start to have these conversations, you start to realize, oh man, I can burn through all 32 of those, knowing that I found the pattern of what works, what they want to hear. Just like Russell Brunson's story with ClickFunnels. He couldn't sell after 1 event, 2 events, 3 events. The 4th one, he was like, just going to tweak this wording, and boom, it hit. And then he started selling like crazy after that. And I think that's the beauty of it. You get to get feedback loop. Risk-free way to figure out what the messaging is. And now you can really start selling at scale. And now you can close all 32 next month once you figure it out.
Quick increase that percentage, right? 25 to 40 or 50. And this is low numbers. Let's say you get 2 new clients a month. That can be big time for people just to, once you get that machine rolling and you're putting content out there alongside that. So really, we don't have to get into all this, but we've built what we call a scaling engine. It is our software for making this process very efficient and visible so that people don't fall through the cracks, and the follow-up's on point, and you can not only create lead flow but create cash flow in your business. So kind of 1, 2, 3 right here: connect to scaling engine, dial your messaging, your targeting like we talked about, and turn on the automations. And then, join the community, join support. But yeah, hit us up, join the community if you want to dig deeper into here. But I think it was great for us to dig in into some specifics here and what it could look like.
Seriously, Russell Brunson says, hey, the money's in the list, right? And if all this system did was build a list of qualified prospects for you, would it be worth it? Right? 10,000 leads before you know it that you can reach out to. They all remember you. They know you from somewhere. There's a history. If all I did was that, I would think it's worth it. Right? If all I did was, help your salesperson, if not you, figure out what the messaging is, so now you can run with that forever, right, and close more deals, I think that'll be worth it as well. Right? So it really sets you up for success once you have something that's humming versus the manual effort of you doing it yourself. Because if you do it yourself, a lot of things are going to fall to the crack. And that, like I mentioned, what it means to you is you have that freedom to go upstairs and play with the kids who are screaming and laughing, right? And you know that this message is being sent. When you come back, there's 7 different email or text message responses, and they have another opportunity to try to book them on a call, right? And so it's working for you as you're using the other time to handle what's most important to you.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a heart for people who are lean and mean. Not everybody has a sales team and, appointment setters. You got to be scrappy with it and do a lot with a little. So we love helping people do a lot with a little. And you can do another cool use case is if you're trying to start a podcast, people love the perceived authority to be on your podcast. This could be Dream 100 route and use it to invite people onto your podcast and load a campaign of people you would love to chat with and drive value to your audience. And if you don't feel qualified to speak, like you're bringing people with a lot of stories and experience and expertise, and they can share to your audience and fuel great content. So then inbound and outbound, it can feed your inbound, right? So it's just really cool how this can be such a pillar piece to just drive activity in your business.
That reminds me of impact theory. Remember that how his channel,
Yes.
he just interviews smart minds. Now he became an authority because he was associated with them, right? Oh, you've interviewed Tony Robbins? What? He must be awesome, right? So
Yeah.
that's a good
He's
point
literally
right
getting
there.
smarter, and he's asking those selfish, curious questions that you don't typically hear in interviews because he's just deep diving, and he's asking the questions that we would all ask if we're not like have business in mind. Like we're just like
Exactly.
we want to learn and from this person to help ourselves grow.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah, I like
So
that idea.
this puts it all together and make it easy for the inbound and the outbound. So I'm glad we highlighted some of that. Of course, we're sharing stories and experiences and layouts and frameworks that fuel this. But this is the thing that keeps it all together, right? Because when you start to get the promotions, people down to your funnel, this is what catches them at the top, right? Even
Yep.
if that was all like more inbound, but for outbound, this fits in that sense. We're going to be able to apply this to inbound. We'll show it, but
Absolutely.
this is
More visuals to come.
more visuals, more examples,
Yeah.
more layouts.
There's a link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to hop into the community, ask some questions. We're gonna be sharing more deeper dive into this. Would love to have you in there and start to learn quick and easy ways to start tapping in and driving more activity and growth and impact into your business.
Seriously, so I think we can call that one a wrap. So that way they can wrap their mind around what was just said. Right? Because
Great
it's
combo.
our
You want to do a
mission.
little recap?
Yeah.
Do a little recap here?
Yeah. You want to take that away? You want me to do that?
Yeah. I mean, we started with sales messaging in general, right? The importance of making someone, helping drop people's guard down, using tone. If we're talking actual sales calls, but like we keep coming back to messaging because it's important. People need to feel understood, and they need to feel that what you have for them is worth more than the perceived risk that they may have experienced in the past. So then from there we went to, okay, talk about all the ways we can acquire a customer like we've been talking about into a funnel, but what's the quickest way to get a feedback loop, test messaging, and drive leads and revenue and appointments in your business? It's usually that outbound prospecting, and it can work for you way more than some people think or have had experience with so far. And then what would you add to that?
Man, and keeping it all together, right? What we
Yeah.
talked about is like, hey, you can get someone to raise their hand. We even highlighted how to get them to raise their hand to then walk them into a situation where you can ask them qualifying questions lead them to the end, right? But it's at that point where you have to make sure you're organized in a way where, hey, I know where you're at in your journey. My messaging fits you in this scenario, and knowing you have a tool that can keep it all together, I think that's the power of it. You even highlighted somehow how LinkedIn could be the tool to get these free leads continuously, right? And I think that's going to be
Yep.
something that anyone can apply because LinkedIn's open to them. YouTube, you got a lot of resources in front of you that can lead them back to the top of the funnel. But what's most important is bringing them in, having a way to touch that person in different ways that's going to let them, lead them to that end result. Right?
Yes. So, consolidate the complicated technology, automate the process, generate sales opportunities, and do your thing to apply great, conviction-driven, empathetic sales around your product or service that you believe in, and like you said, Daniel, that is an obligation to serve the people in front of you. I just love that perspective.
Exactly, I love it. We'll keep this up. We'll keep doing what we're doing because it's our more obligation to make success a little bit more open source. So we ended with that, huh?
Yes, sir. Catch you all in the next one.
See you.
Hey, thanks for watching the Success Open Source Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love for you to subscribe and join the community. Until next time, take care, and let's all make success a little more open source.